There's one mistake Sigma males make in relationships, one fatal flaw, that quietly destroys everything they've worked so hard to build. And here's the twist, it's not the mistake everyone assumes Sigmas make. It's not about being too distant. It's not about being too independent. It's not even about being emotionally unavailable on purpose. In fact, it's the exact opposite. And if you've ever fallen into this trap, you've probably watched genuinely good relationships crumble right in front of you, without ever truly understanding what went wrong. Today, I'm exposing the single biggest relationship mistake Sigma males make. And trust me, it's going to surprise you, because it goes completely against the stereotypes, the cliches, and the so-called Sigma rules that everyone repeats online. Most advice tells Sigmas to stay detached, guard their energy, maintain strict boundaries, and keep a little mystery in everything they do. But that's not where the real danger lies. The real problem is something so subtle, so deeply ingrained in the Sigma mindset, that most Sigmas don't even notice they're making this mistake, not until it's too late. Not until the person who actually cared walks away. Not until the damage is already done. So today, I'm breaking it all down. The crucial mistake almost every Sigma makes. Why Sigma males are particularly vulnerable to it. How it silently sabotages good relationships. And, most importantly, how to avoid destroying the connections that genuinely deserve your effort and presence. Let's get into it. The crucial mistake, treating good partners like everyone else. Here it is, the mistake that quietly destroys more Sigma male relationships than anything else. You treat good partners the same way you treat everyone else. Your entire life has trained you to be selective. To guard your energy. To protect your peace at all costs. To maintain strong boundaries because most people don't deserve access to your inner world. And this mindset works beautifully when you're dealing with shallow people, manipulators, attention seekers, or anyone who feels entitled to your time. Your filtering system is elite. Your boundaries are iron. Your tolerance for nonsense is zero. But here's the hidden downside. When someone finally shows up who isn't like the rest. Someone who's steady, honest, emotionally grounded. Someone who respects your space without taking advantage of it. Someone who brings clarity instead of chaos. You still interact with them like they're just another person passing through your life. You don't switch modes. You don't soften the walls you built for survival. You don't shift from guarded evaluation to genuine connection. Because for so long, staying detached has been your safest default. Think about what actually happens. This person has already proven they're different. They don't suffocate you. They don't demand emotional labor you never agreed to. They don't challenge your autonomy or try to reshape your identity. They simply bring stability, intention, and presence. They've shown consistency when most people couldn't even show effort. They've passed every conscious and unconscious test you needed to feel safe. They've never tried to weaponize your trust. And yet, you still treat them like a potential threat. You still hold back parts of yourself you could share. You still keep the emotional gates half-locked just in case. You still maintain the same level of distance you use with acquaintances, coworkers, or strangers who haven't earned anything from you. This is the mistake. Not realizing when someone has moved from person I'm evaluating to person who has earned a different version of me. Not knowing when to adjust your behavior to match the emotional safety you actually have. Not recognizing that a good partner doesn't need you to abandon your independence. They just need you to stop treating them like they're guilty until proven innocent. Why Sigmas are vulnerable to this mistake. So why do Sigma males fall into this trap more than anyone else? It comes down to the way you were shaped, psychologically, emotionally, and socially. From a young age, you learned to rely on yourself because relying on others felt inconsistent, risky, or disappointing. You became emotionally self-sufficient not because you wanted to be untouchable, but because experience taught you that vulnerability usually came with a price. So you built structures around your heart, solid ones. Not flimsy boundaries that bend based on mood, but hard-coded systems designed to protect your peace. Years, sometimes decades, of refining these systems turned you into a master of solitude. You became the person who doesn't crumble under pressure, who doesn't need validation, who doesn't fold just because emotions get heavy. But here's the hidden cost of that strength. Walls don't differentiate. They don't analyze someone's intentions. They don't scan for respect, loyalty, or emotional maturity. Once they're up, they block everything. The toxic people and the people who genuinely want to love you. Most people walk around with simple walls and easy gates. Sigma males? You build fortresses, layered, fortified, reinforced with logic, memory, and instinct. People don't walk into your life, they have to decode you, survive your silence, pass your tests, and prove they're not a liability. But even when someone does prove themselves, the fortress remains. Not because you don't trust them, but because your defenses became part of your identity. And then there's the pattern recognition problem, one of your greatest strengths and your biggest weakness. You're good at reading people. Danger signals, inconsistencies, emotional shifts, you see them before others do. You remember every betrayal, every broken promise, every moment where someone took advantage of your empathy or patience. Your mind connects dots instantly. And once a pattern is recognized, you don't forget it. So your brain forms a quiet, powerful assumption. Everyone eventually reveals the same flaws. You anticipate disappointment before it happens. You watch for betrayal even in moments of loyalty. You subconsciously prepare for people to leave, even when they're showing you they're committed. You're so focused on not repeating the past that you can't fully embrace the present. You carry shadows from old relationships into new ones without realizing it. You hold back not because someone is untrustworthy, but because you refuse to be blindsided again. And then there's your independence. The core pillar of your identity. Being self-directed, self-sustained, and emotionally sovereign is how you define yourself. So even when you're in a good relationship, with someone who isn't trying to control or change you, you still maintain a strategic distance. Not because they did anything wrong, but because closeness feels like a threat to the autonomy you worked so hard to build. You end up protecting yourself at the cost of intimacy. You protect your identity at the expense of the connection. You remain safe, but alone in a relationship that could have been meaningful. What this looks like in real life. So what does this mistake actually look like when it plays out in everyday relationships? It's subtle at first, almost invisible to you, but painfully obvious to the person who's trying to love you. It shows up when your partner asks for something simple, like more quality time together. Not because they're needy, clingy, or trying to take over your life, but because spending time together is a normal, healthy part of a real relationship. Yet, instead of seeing it as a gesture of connection, you interpret it as pressure, a threat to your independence. You respond with distance, thinking you're protecting yourself, while they're left wondering why something so natural feels like a burden to you. It shows up when they open up emotionally, sharing something personal, vulnerable, or meaningful, and you reply with the same neutral, guarded tone you'd use in a casual conversation with someone you barely know. You don't do this because you distrust them. You do it because being guarded is your autopilot mode. It's the emotional armor you've worn for so long that you don't even notice when you're using it in moments where softness is needed. It shows up when they talk about the future, making simple long-term plans, imagining where the relationship could go, or expressing hopes, and instead of feeling excited or supported, you feel a sudden wave of suffocation. You react like a lone wolf who just happens to be in a relationship, rather than someone who is intentionally building something with a trustworthy partner. Your instinct is to pull back, not because you want to lose them, but because commitment feels like it threatens the freedom you've spent your life protecting. It shows up when they try to understand your inner world, your feelings, your fears, your dreams, the thoughts you rarely voice. Not to invade your privacy, not to control you, but because emotional intimacy is the heart of a real connection. Yet you keep everything surface level. You share the safe parts, the logical parts, the parts that don't require vulnerability. You never adjust your internal privacy settings, even when the person in front of you has earned deeper access. And it shows up in the worst way when they consistently demonstrate loyalty, consistency, and genuine care, and you barely acknowledge it. Not because you're ungrateful, but because you're still in evaluation mode. You keep testing them long after they've passed every test you subconsciously created. You treat their loyalty like an anomaly rather than a reality, and in doing so, you make them feel unseen, unappreciated, and perpetually not enough. In every one of these moments, the same pattern repeats. You're applying your protective strategies to everyone universally, even when someone has clearly earned a different level of trust, intimacy, and emotional access. And this, more than anything else, slowly breaks down relationships that could have been something extraordinary. The cost of this mistake. So what's the real cost of treating a good partner the same way you treat everyone else? It doesn't explode all at once, it erodes slowly, silently, and painfully. First, your partner starts to feel like they're in a relationship with a wall instead of a person. You're physically present, sitting next to them, sleeping beside them, spending time in the same room, but emotionally, you're somewhere else entirely. You're available in the most literal sense, yet completely inaccessible where it matters most. They try to connect, but every attempt feels like tapping on a locked door. Over time, they start to feel a deep, lonely ache, the kind of loneliness that only exists when the person you love is right beside you but impossible to reach. As the distance grows, something even heavier begins to take root: doubt. They start questioning whether you even care. They replay your conversations, your tone, your reactions, trying to decode whether you're invested or just tolerating their presence. Because you treat them with the same emotional reserve you use with strangers, acquaintances, coworkers, even people who don't matter, They genuinely can't tell if they matter to you at all. Your neutrality creates confusion. Your calmness becomes misinterpreted as indifference. They wonder, if I disappeared, would anything change for him? Eventually, something inside them shifts. Not in anger, but in resignation. They stop trying. They stop opening up. They stop asking for connection, for closeness, for effort, because every time they reached for you, they were met with distance. They come to the painful realization that no matter how loyal they are, no matter how patient, respectful, or consistent, you're not going to let them in emotionally. They can't build a relationship with someone who won't step out from behind his own walls. And then comes the part that hits Sigma males the hardest, often too late to fix. When they finally walk away, something inside you breaks. Not because you didn't care, but because you cared more than you ever showed. You suddenly see the truth with brutal clarity. They were exactly the kind of partner you always hoped to find. Someone who respected your independence. Someone who didn't bring drama, games, or chaos into your life. Someone who added peace, value, and stability. Someone who genuinely saw you. But now they're gone. Not because of conflict. Not because of betrayal. Not because of incompatibility. They left because you were unavailable, emotionally, psychologically, and consistently. And that's the deepest sting. You didn't lose them because you weren't enough. You lost them because you never let them see the parts of you that were enough. You didn't get abandoned. You unintentionally pushed them away. And the weight of that realization stays with a Sigma male far longer than any heartbreak ever could. The truth Sigma males don't like to hear. Being guarded with everyone isn't strength. It's fear disguised as boundaries. True independence doesn't mean keeping everyone at arm's length forever. True independence means you're secure enough to be vulnerable with people who've earned it. If your independence only works when you're isolated, it's not independence. It's dependence on isolation. Real independence is the ability to stay yourself while still letting someone in. Signs you're making this mistake. Your partner has proven themselves, but you still don't fully trust them. Months or years have passed with no progression in emotional intimacy. They only know surface-level information about you. Their requests for connection feel like suffocation. You invest more in your individual pursuits than the relationship. You don't remember the last time you did something meaningful for them. They've complained about emotional distance, and you brushed it off as neediness. If these resonate, you're almost definitely making this mistake. How to fix it, without losing your Sigma nature? The good news is this: you don't need to change who you are. You don't need to become more emotional, more talkative, or more dependent. You don't need to abandon your solitude, your independence, or your sense of self. What you do need is differentiation, the ability to treat people who've earned your trust differently from the average person. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world, but the few who do should feel the difference. The first step is simple but powerful: recognize what your partner has already proven. Take a moment, quietly, intentionally, to acknowledge the loyalty, consistency, patience, and respect they've shown you. Make a real list if you must. Seeing it clearly helps your mind distinguish between someone who's part of your inner circle and someone who's simply passing through your life. This shifts your instinct from "protect myself" to "invest intentionally." Next, allow yourself to share more of your internal world. This doesn't mean spilling every emotion or exposing every vulnerability. It simply means offering more than the emotional minimum. Talk about what you think, what you fear, what you want, what you dream about. Share pieces of yourself that aren't accessible to just anyone. It's not about quantity, it's about depth. A single honest moment can build more intimacy than 100 surface-level conversations. Then, prioritize quality time, not out of obligation, but out of intentional investment. You don't need to spend every moment together, but when you choose to give your time, let it mean something. Let your partner feel that you value the connection enough to dedicate your presence to it. Time is the most powerful currency in a Sigma male's world, and giving it freely to someone is one of the strongest signs of trust. When you are together, be fully present. Real presence means eye contact, conversation, attention, and emotional engagement. It means the phone is down, your mind isn't wandering, and you're not using distance as a shield. Presence builds safety. Presence builds trust. And presence reassures your partner that they're seen, not just tolerated. Express appreciation. A Sigma male may feel it, but rarely says it. But your partner cannot read your internal world. They need to hear it sometimes. Tell them when their actions matter. Tell them when they make your life easier, calmer, or better. Appreciation doesn't weaken you, it strengthens the bond. Show occasional vulnerability, not emotional dumping or overwhelming confessions, but subtle, meaningful openness. Let them see the human beneath the armor. A rare moment of honesty hits 10 times harder coming from someone who's usually composed and self-contained. Vulnerability, in controlled doses, is a gift, not a weakness. Finally, make decisions with both people in mind. You're no longer a lone operator wandering through life with zero responsibilities to anyone else. Being independent doesn't mean being isolated, it means having the strength to include someone in your life without losing your identity. Consider how your choices affect the relationship. Not because you're losing your freedom, but because you're choosing connection. The goal is balance, not transformation. Be present, but not consumed. Be independent, but not disconnected. Be vulnerable, but never weak. Be invested, but never dependent. This is how a Sigma male maintains his core nature while still building a relationship that thrives instead of collapses. This is how you protect your identity and your connection at the same time. The long-term consequences of ignoring this. If you don't fix this, here's your future. A string of relationships with good people who eventually leave. Or a long-term partnership that feels hollow and emotionally empty. A life where loneliness isn't your preference, it's your punishment for not letting the right people in. And later, you'll realize. You didn't lose relationships. You lost the chance to ever experience real connection. The real truth. The biggest mistake Sigma males make in relationships is not being too independent. It's failing to recognize when someone has earned a different version of you. Your selectiveness is a strength. Your inability to differentiate is the weakness. Don't let your commitment to independence cost you the people who respect it. Learn to be present with the ones who've earned your presence. That's not weakness. That's wisdom.